Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. Blessings, good evening. There was one occasion when a monk came to stay with Lumpur Cha from another monastery. He hadn't been trained by Lumpur Cha. And he asked to stay at the monastery for a period of time and study, so he could learn how things were done at Ajahn Chah's monastery. And he asked permission to stay there, but also to keep the money that he was using. And Ajahn Chah was very strict that monks should, the monks he was training should not use money in line with the Vinaya, the monk's discipline. And he said, well, no, we don't allow monks to use or handle money at this monastery. And the monk protested and said, but I practice non-attachment, so I don't attach to this money. And Ajahn Chah, Lumpur Cha, used the simile of it's a bit like salt. He said, if you can find me some salt that is not salty to taste, then you can use your money that is, basis for attachment. Normally anyone who's got money, handles money, uses money, will be tempted to become greedy and attached to it. So the basis of the monastic life is poverty. As a monk, you don't have a money income, you don't use money, and you're not able to buy things, property and all of that. So you have to be prepared for that when you come into the robes. You're coming into a life of poverty. Of course, nowadays the Buddhist community is quite well off generally, and so we don't starve, as you know. We don't starve, we don't struggle for the basic necessities of life. Even though we don't have money and a money income, we get by. There are some areas in the world where Buddhist monks are still not well supported, of course. There are those places. In the old days there were a lot more, but nowadays people have more wealth so they can share with monks. But still if you're a monastic, you have this thought, who's going to look after me when I'm sick? Where's the next meal coming from? Maybe there's something you want that can help you with your monk's life, some item, but you haven't got the money to buy it. So these things do come up, these doubts, but you have your faith in the practice. And the idea is that the renunciation of the money and the freedom that money brings you as a monk helps you to really let go of many defilements. It's not to say you can't practice letting go as a layperson, earning money and handling money. You can practice. But as we know in the lay life, there's a lot of temptation, a lot of situations bring up mental defilements, greed, anger, delusion, attachments, cravings. Very hard to go to work anywhere and not sometimes think about how much you're going to get paid. Or to have money and then have issues about how you're going to spend it. Most people will know the thought, I don't have enough for what I want to do, I always want more, need more, and so on. This is the saltiness of money. You may periodically be able to have a very pure relationship with money, but if you drop your guard quickly, the saltiness, the attachment will come up. So for monks, we kind of cut out that problem. It means you have to be very patient and endure many states of mind that come up when you have desires, wants, particularly for material things. But it can also bring so many benefits. There's no, if nobody owns or has money in a monastery, then there's very little competition or jealousy. You can't be jealous of what nobody has. You can't be jealous of another monk. If they have no money and you have no money, you're both in the same position. So it means your mind can settle down, focus on the practice of developing mindfulness and then insight into the three characteristics. So they sometimes say, like, when you become a Buddhist monk, it's like you're dying, you're dying to the world. Because so many people associate worldly life with career, earning wealth, making something of yourself in a material way, getting a name, getting a career, getting all kinds of experiences and getting wealth that you can own and use in different ways. So it's like when you become a Buddhist monk, it's almost like you're just dying from that. In fact, when I told one of my friends' family, before I was a monk, one of my university friends, I told his family that I was becoming a Buddhist monk in Thailand. His dad said, "Oh, that's the end of him, he might as well be dead." Because the sense of just identifying with a career and earning money and having wealth and all of that is so ingrained in our culture and our society that if you're not pursuing that, it's like you're nobody. But of course, as a Buddhist monk, being nobody is an advantage. It means you can let go of all kinds of attachments very quickly. Being no one, going nowhere, as they say. So being poor, although hard to endure, is very helpful for meditation. Less to worry about, less to get jealous about, less to be concerned about. This is one of the main principles of Buddhist monastic life, that you're not here to accumulate wealth wherever you are, here, this monastery or any other monastery. It's not a good place to be if you're aiming to accumulate wealth. Similarly with, say, celibacy, that changes your lifestyle, so you're not planning to have kids, you're not continuing the family line as a Buddhist monk. So again, that's why they say, oh, it's like you're dying. That's the end of that, the family line from your point of view, where you may have brothers and sisters who have children, and every monk knows if they've got a brother or sister who has a family and they have kids, that takes the pressure off. Because often parents are looking for grandkids, and if you're not going to produce them, then who will? So celibacy also is the flavour of the monastic life. Very simple. Some people say selfish. That's their first reaction. They say, oh, you're celibate. No one to help, no one to look after, you're not producing any children for the world. Only thinking of yourself. Even though the actual basis of the lifestyle is to learn not to think for yourself, but to let go of that kind of attachment. It seems on the surface that it's a very selfish lifestyle to some people. Not producing money, so you're not producing anything good, no products and services for the world, for the economy. Not producing children, not looking after anyone in terms of a family. So it definitely is a very different, you might even say unique, way of life. And it's a bit like you die to the world, because most people are concerned with family and wealth and those kind of things and all the issues that they bring up. So you die to the world. And that's what you're learning in meditation. Even as a layperson, if you're meditating regularly, you'll find you also contemplate the impermanence, the ending of things. So the idea of death becomes more familiar to you. Death just means the ending, doesn't it? Ending of something. The cessation, we say cessation in Buddhism. If you become a Buddhist monk, it's like early death, early cessation. If you're a layperson, well, if you have developed strong mindfulness, states of stillness, samadhi, maybe you also have some insight into the impermanence of life. Some lay people, they meditate and they have a experience where their mind is very still, calm, enter samadhi. It seems the mind separates from the body, and then looking back at their own body as though they're outside of it. And they have this experience, oh, this body is not me, not myself. It's like it dies. Sometimes they might even have an image of themselves as a corpse or a skeleton. These kinds of insights are also like an insight into impermanence, into the death. But it familiarizes you with the concept of and the idea of death and the ending of things and the lack of ownership also. So whether you're a monastic or a lay person, it can be a very valuable insight that arises maybe after much contemplation of the impermanent nature of things, seeing things arise, pass away, your mind becomes much clearer that in the end you can't hold on to anything. When you do die eventually, whenever that may be, you can't take anything with you. Nothing goes with you. If you meditate on that, maybe you can see that well before you die. No, you don't have to wait to be on your deathbed to understand the point. You can contemplate that every day. Nothing stays with me, nothing goes with me. Every time you let go of something, maybe if it's a material thing, like when you practice dana, charity, you're practicing a little bit of death, aren't you? It's like a kind of cessation, the cessation of ownership and identification with that thing that you share with someone else, whether it is money or food or some other kind of item, requisite. If you're supporting monks, be some requisite you offer. It was once in your hands, and then you give it away, physically let go of it. It's like the death of the attachment to that item that was once yours. But you also have to contemplate on the mental level, on the psychological level, because you can hand something over to another person, but mentally you haven't relinquished, you haven't given up. So then there's a sort of, maybe the eyes follow the item, or the thought, at least the mind dwells on it. Where's it gone? Who's got it? What's happened to it? If you're really reflecting on impermanence and cessation and death, you could say, you don't need to do that. You can just drop it. That isn't to say you might not gain some information, some awareness of what happens to your donation if you do some act of charity. You might still be aware, but mentally, the aim is to drop all ownership. Give it up, so that the mind is light and free. This is why we practice dana. You're training yourself to let go, to die from attachments. As Ajahn Chah said, to die before you die. So you're still alive, but mentally you're letting attachments die away, drop away from your mind. What was once yours, you no longer take ownership of that. If it's on the level of sila, maybe precept, sila, morality, it's more of the mental dying of the sense of self. Say like when somebody hurts you and you're angry and you want to get them back, but you decide to keep your precepts. You're mentally aware enough of the value of precepts. At that time, you're patient enough to restrain your anger, your whatever negative emotion is arising in that situation. You restrain it consciously with understanding. It's like a mental dying of a little bit of self. In the old self, the old view of self, the old behavior would maybe talk back or argue or do something in a reaction to whatever it is. If somebody else has hurt you, hurt your feelings or done something against you in some way, your old way may have been to fight back or seek revenge, or at the very least plot some revenge, sit there planning what you're going to do. The way of sila, the way of training the mind to give up and abandon, say, anger, means you have to let anger die at that moment. The desire to hurt, to harm, to get back in one way or another, directly or even indirectly, you let it die. And that's going on internally, so maybe nobody else knows anything about it. It's not necessarily something you show or discuss, although sometimes we do. If you're angry with someone, then you get caught into negative thoughts, maybe you go and ask forgiveness or apologize. Sometimes people do this if they're very refined in their practice. They may not even have said or done anything wrong, but mentally they were holding on to a mood of aversion towards another person for a while, and then when they're ready they go and apologize and say, "Oh, I've been thinking negative thoughts to you. Just want to apologize and say there's no further ill will." Maybe the person doesn't even know. That happens, doesn't it? Sometimes the one that was the object of anger doesn't even know you're angry. You go and apologize. It's like, what? Why? Why are you apologizing? But we do this all the time. We have thoughts about other people, and some of those thoughts coming from negative emotions, ill will, aversion, even hatred. So on the most refined level, sometimes we just, at the very least, mentally relinquish those thoughts, let them die. But sometimes verbally as well, we go and say or do something to express our determination to give up that way of thinking. It's also the death of something, isn't it? That part of yourself that was holding on with anger, ill will, aversion, or even hatred. You're letting it die. And the most refined level of this is, you might call it vipassana meditation, where you're seeing every sankhara, every mental intention as impermanent, suffering, not self, not to be clung to as self, to be let go of. Or put it in another way, to let it die. Just let that thought die. Meaning stop clinging to it. And that could be a good thought. Let the good thoughts die in the sense that let the clinging to them die. Doesn't mean to say you can't have a good thought. But all thoughts in the end, all intentions, good and bad, are to be seen as impermanent, not self. Not to be clung to as self. So you let them die. Let any attachment forming in the mind, once recognized, you let it die. Because you know it's still the cause of more suffering if you hold on. Clinging to the good can lead to suffering, because if you cling to the good when the good passes and maybe you miss it or you want it back, you're disappointed with yourself when you move away from the good thoughts, the kind thoughts, the wise thoughts, back into more deluded thoughts based on negative emotions, and you don't feel happy with yourself, not proud of yourself, and you crave to get back to the previously experienced good thoughts. Even the good can be a cause of suffering. So when you notice that attachment, identification with the good, you say, "Oh, let it die, let it go, relinquish the attachment." Bad thoughts we don't really need to discuss very much. Sometimes we have views, wrong views that we don't fully see. Like someone was here the other day, they had the view that all human beings are inherently evil. And they occasionally do some good when they can rise up out of their evil nature. But they are basically evil, wrong, bad. If you're going around like that, then it might give you a lot of strength to not give up evil ways, because you say, well, that's just the way I am, that's just the way all humans are. It might make you indulgent or lazy not to practice, or may give you lots of excuses not to practice. The Buddha said we're not inherently anything, good or bad. The mind is a conditioned thing. And if you experience evil states of mind, unwholesome, unskillful states of mind, they cause you suffering, they may lead you to make other people suffer too. But they can be abandoned. They're not always present because they arise and pass away, they're impermanent. So even some of our wrong views, subtle wrong views that underlie our behaviour and condition us, we have to wake up to them, become more alert, catch them and let them die too. Sometimes it's the view about blaming or attributing everything to the gods or a god. It's all up to God's will or the will of the gods. Sometimes it's the view that everything is just random and you can't do anything anyway, so you might as well give up. It's just destiny. I'm sitting here angry with my friend and it's just destiny. It's always going to be like that. Of course, the Buddhist practice helps us to see, well, you can change things. You can improve. The whole purpose is to improve. And all the teachings give us that insight that nothing is fixed, permanent. You may have negative thoughts, negative emotions, feelings, conditioning, negative trains of thought come up. May even lead to harmful speech, harmful actions. But all of this can be changed through training, through practice. That's why we practice. On the level of action, the level of speech, and the level of the mind, through meditation. If we couldn't change, then there'd be no point to the Buddhist teaching. But the Buddha understood very well his own mind and saw how he could change by developing insight, letting the attachments, the wrong views die, and then he saw, well, other people can also do this. But he said he couldn't do it for us, so he's not acting like a god or some super powerful figure who can wave his Dhamma wand and we all are freed from the effects of our mental defilements. He said you've got to do it through your own practice. He can only point the way. And that's another view we often get caught into. We think we can change the world by telling everyone else what they should be doing. And forget to see ourselves or practice for ourselves. And often we spend a lot of energy trying to help other people by telling them what they should be doing, explaining to them. It doesn't mean to say everything we say is wasted, but it's more the view behind it. We sometimes get so caught up into our view that we should be helping someone else, telling them what to do. Or sometimes through anger, we are angry with someone, so we're telling them what to do. But in the end, they have to see for themselves and act for themselves. We can't make them do very much at all. On the outside you can. On the outside you can make someone follow you or do what you desire. But mentally you can't make them do what you desire or be the way you want them to be. They have to want to change from the inside. And that change is helped along by seeing the impermanence of attachment. The things we attach to are impermanent, and what is impermanent cannot be a lasting self. If someone is behaving in an unskillful way, what we call an evil way, a bad way, you may point it out to them or remind them, but in the end they have to agree in themselves to change. You can't do that for them. And we have to practice for ourselves, because we're often hoping for the miracle, the blessing from the Buddha or some gods or some monk, somebody to do it for us. As someone was saying recently also, miracles just mean you've worked hard. A miracle if someone wins the race, or their meditation is successful, or they make their mind still, or somebody has deep insight, or someone gets enlightened. You can call it a miracle, but really it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. That's what miracle, the true miracle is. Somebody being willing to train their mind and let go or let die mental defilements. Let them die until they no longer come back. There's no way around it. It requires effort or work. It's perhaps the more modern way of looking at it. We say it's work. Unpaid work too. No money to reward for it. But the reward is actually better than anything you can buy. You can't buy the Dhamma, you can't buy good karma, you can't buy a peaceful mind, you can't buy a mind that is free from defilement. It has to be, you might say, won. It has to be won through your own efforts, your own attempts to practice and keep doing it until you succeed. You win the victory over your mind. Anyone who's saying they can sell you the Dhamma, or sell you wisdom, or sell you a peaceful mind, or sell you a pure mind, either they're deluded, or you're deluded, or both. It's impossible. We have to practice for ourselves. We have to do the work, put in the effort for ourselves. So there's some reflections on the Dhamma practice tonight. I'll leave them there for your consideration.